right, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Black Ribbon Warrior. I'm joined by my lovely wife.
Hello.
what a what an uneventful week we've had.
I like uneventful.
Yep, we had family doctor appointment. A1C come back at 7.4, so uh, up a bit, but the thyroid number come back a bit higher um, than what it was 3 months prior, which explains why my sugar numbers have been higher.
Well, it's higher than it was in December.
Yep. So December I was at a 2, and then I'm at like a 10 now. So that explains why the sugar numbers have been higher on a daily basis, and the A1C was higher. But that's kind of how the one of the roller coasters that it's been is the thyroid numbers have been up and down, up and down, up and down, and you're like, okay, well, what's that mean? Well, when the thyroid numbers are high, my sugar is higher, and I am extremely tired. I am more tired than normal.
And your doctors explained it 100 times. And I still battle understanding. It kind of is like the way I'm remembering it is it means that your thyroid is giving kind of the wrong signal to your pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is what tells you, like, your thyroid to increase making this hormone, when in reality we don't want to increase making this hormone. So that's why you're on the medicine to kind of counteract that. But it's is are we now at the right place for medicine, like the right dosage?
Which we've seen this in the during treatment where the thyroid number goes up, and then a few months later it comes down, and then it's back up, and it's back down. He's not. He put me on some medicine to help with that, but it's not as out of control because it always comes back down. It goes up, it peaks, and then it starts its way back down. So it's all part of the treatment. We did go back in July of this year. No, August of just passed, and saw a.
Well, we're gonna get there because that's all part of all of this stuff, though. Like, we have to kind of talk about it in the period.
In cycle, yeah. So part of the treatment is that you can become type 2 diabetic. And I kind of laughed at the doctor and said, haha, gotcha, I'm already there. He said, haha, you could become type 1. And I was like, damn it.
I know there's no way out.
So
He didn't say you could become non-diabetic. So, I mean,
so we did, we'll get to that later, but we did go check, and everything is still, I'm still type 2. So
I don't know if that's applause worthy, but I mean, I guess.
I don't need insulin shots. I'm still type 1, or still type 2. I'm not type 1, so I'm still making insulin. It's just my thyroid gland, which is confused. And
Honey, your whole body's a little confused.
yes, I agree.
Yes.
And it's and through this, it's been really hard not to fall back into my nightly nightlife. And by that I mean staying up late, like 3, 4, and 5 in the morning, and sleeping all day like I used to, because I used to work night shift for better part of 20 years. So it's been a battle not to fall back into that. Um,
That cycle.
yeah,
It's just a
that's like
cycle.
I went brain my brain skipped for a minute. So that has been a challenge that I've been more aware of, and I think here lately I've been more conscious of things and trying to make changes as much as my body will let me. And with the thyroid being high, my sugar being high, that puts a lot of limitations and a lot of um, really motivation is the word.
I think motivation is the
A
thing.
lot of motivation, because if you don't if you constantly feel like you're in a fog, you don't want to do the sunny stuff, like you would on a sunny day. So I mean, that's kind of where I've been this last couple months, well, month, and knowing that we're 3 weeks. This is our third week into quote unquote surveillance mode. Um, I want to get out and do stuff. I want to try to get back to the the old Lee that I was, but my body's like, hold up, buddy, you ain't ready. We got the e-brake on.
Well, and your mindset's not there.
And I'm trying to push my mindset there, and my mindset's not even close. Um, what I find is when I do try to push it, that I end up having more brain pauses because my brain just can't keep up with the random acts of things that I'm doing or want to do. So anyway, uh,
Okay.
yeah. So Mama, I think that's a good. How are you been
Good.
mentally and all that? How you feeling with the 3 weeks into surveillance?
Um, I mean, overall good. Overall good. I'm just trusting in the fact that everything was clean at your last scans, hoping they remain clean, and trying to step out of the when's the shoe gonna fall kind of mentality, which is where I've been for the last 18 months. When is the next shoe gonna fall? When is the next thing gonna happen? And I know that's not the way to think. However,
Which
I also don't want to be blindsided because blindsided hurt. Blindsided is what got us here.
right?
And
Which is
unfortunately,
yeah,
I just don't feel like I want to be blindsided. I would rather be like, okay, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for it, something to crumble here.
which
and
is
prepare myself for that rather than.
I've had to kind of explain this a few times to people who have called to check in, see how things are going, what's the next steps, what are we trying to do. Well, I'm still recovering from brain surgery. That's the way he put it, was that it was three traumas, not only the tumor but the surgery and
The radiation.
the radiation. So there's a lot going on in recovery in that. And then they're like, well, you got a clear scan. Does that mean you're in remission? With melanoma, no. It's not considered remission like it would be for a colon cancer or
Well, I don't know about colon cancer because I don't know how colon cancer works. But
well, a lot of times you hear like breast cancer or something like that.
Yeah, they typically go through remission.
Yeah, you hear that they're in a remission, and you're like, well, melanoma is the same. And no, it's actually non-detected because melanoma is a skin cancer, and your skin regenerates. So your cancer cells will continue to regenerate, but they have to, the microbits have to.
Ooh, the microbits.
I know the microbits. See, I do listen to the doctor.
Yeah.
So he said, like, basically the microbits have to attract to other microbits to become basically a cluster. And then that cluster is what turns into a cell or a group of cells, which becomes detectable.
Right. So to kind of just go back in an easier way, when we had the PET scan done and we had all of his scans done initially and we met the doctor for the first time, he basically said, I feel good that the only thing detected were the brain tumor and the spot under the arm. However, I think there's more. And he has said that all the way through, that I think there's more. I don't want you to think that this is it.
And he had said that because it was on the left side, the left lymph node and the left side of the brain,
Yes.
that this originated somewhere on the left side. He
Right.
said typically you'll find that it originated somewhere on the left side. Where?
He was thinking kind of in your upper quadrant, so like your shoulder the front of your chest, your arm, possibly your neck, but more likely on your trunk, on that upper left side of the
So
body.
so then he's like, well, it could be, a mole. It could be a mole that had fallen off because they as your skin regenerates,
Sometimes they can fall off.
they do fall off, or it could be one that was removed and not all of it was got out. Which
And
back when I was probably 12 or 13, we had, that was all the rage and skin cancer and all that stuff. So I say it's all the rage.
I was gonna say, I don't think rage is quite the word, but
Yeah, it was
I'm
the thing
following.
that we did, and I remember going in and getting some zapped and like he had like a little laser thing, and it just tick 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 and scanned it off, and we had some others that were removed and had to be sewn back in, like stitched in, so you didn't have a big blop or scar. I mean, um, but I told him, I said, I seen one on my arm where I was scratching it. Got a scratch on it, and that mole was there was a scab around it, and as the scab came off, so did it. So he's like, well, that could be because we don't really know where it came from.
Yeah, we're not gonna know where it comes from. All we know is that you are gonna have this for the rest of your life.
Yep. So going forward, we're looking at scans every 3 months as part of surveillance
At
mode,
least for the first year, and
yep,
then we'll talk after that.
yep. And we've talked to some people who have had some great success with this going forward, and we know some that have not. So we got our boots on and tied tight, and but
We're just taking a step at a time and doing what we can do. But so okay, let's go back to where we left off. We kind of left off with meeting the doctor and getting your Bractovia Mectovy, which was your oral medicine, your targeted therapy medicine.
that's the medicine that they said I was toxic, and I thought I was peeing radiation.
Yes, you thought everything was toxic, but
Like Secret of the Ooze, like gonna turn like turtles into ninjas, like that kind of
okay. To
like.
be clear, I never thought he was that toxic.
Well, so like
I
after.
didn't think you were like turtles gonna be ninjas if you peed on them. I read the stuff and it said do X, Y, and Z, so I did X, Y, and Z.
In my brain fog, I just had radiation, and I was hoping there was a spider so I could get some spidey senses and be able to climb walls and stuff. Yeah, I know, fat guy climbing walls, but and that didn't happen right away. And then I'm getting this stuff where I'm like, I'm gonna start peeing and things are gonna start coming to life.
Oh my gosh! And given that you are a superhero guy, I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense you thought that, but I'm glad I was here to bring you back down to earth.
Yeah, because like if I'd have peed outside and a squirrel ran through it after I peed, we could have like 5 foot tall squirrels.
Okay, y'all, just to be clear, now he's going to think about 5 foot tall squirrels the rest of the night. This is now how his brain works.
Yes.
I'm a lucky woman. That's all I got.
Yeah.
So, okay, can we get back on track?
Sorry.
Okay, so we did the targeted therapy, and it had its own things. We did it for 8 weeks. Of course, being me, I researched everything I could find, only with good resources and, you know, I don't know, research papers, databases, that kind of thing to kind of prepare myself as much as I could for what reactions he could have. And really, the only things that happened with that was, we talked about how he couldn't eat close to the medicine. Um, that was the biggest one, hot and cold. He couldn't regulate his body so well. So he would have like all the fans on, and the rest of us would be freezing to death. And then we shut them off, and then he'd get really, really hot. And then we turn the fans on, and then he'd get really cold. And it just went back and forth. It was a blanket on, a blanket off, fans on, blankets off. It just craziness.
So when my aunts would used to talk about, and they would laugh about hot flashes, holy cow. I would go, like, I would be sitting there in just a pair of gym shorts. I couldn't even keep socks on. And a t-shirt. I mean, I had a sleeveless t-shirt on and I couldn't even keep it on. I was sweating.
He'd take that off. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, give me that blanket. I'm really cold. So
Like,
it was just a constant back and forth between hot and cold.
like, I don't think I wore a shirt for 3 months.
Well, you did. It just wasn't solid.
It didn't stay on.
It didn't stay on.
Like, I would get up and I'd have to put one on to make it feel like I was normal. And then no more, I'd get sat down drinking coffee. It was gone.
It was gone. So, we did that. And while we were on that, you had really good success. And the good thing about melanoma now, see, just it sounds like it should be a periodical kind of thing. Yeah. Melanoma now. About melanoma is that now there are different medications. Because before, like if you look this up on the internet, it truly says 4 to 6 months. But with the targeted medicine and the use of immunotherapy and having the best doctors who have kind of written the way this is handled, making that protocol, we've had better results. And I guess I'm just really grateful that this happened now rather than 20 years ago. Because I don't know if he would be here, so that's really huge.
The one thing that really stuck with me and kind of, it still sticks with me, and kind of puts it into a surreal, what's the word?
Just a place.
So when we were going through this, he said, if everything works out right, we're looking, you have about 6 years.
Yeah.
And so we're like,
50,
do what?
50% chance for 5 years. And after that, it remains right at 50%.
So, half of the people that have done this have lasted 6 years. So that kind of stuck with me, kind of weighed down on my my depression. That really weighed on me. Because I'm just going, what the hell, I can't even comprehend what the hell's going on. And now my prognosis is at best 6 years.
Not at best, at 50%.
I understood it as at best.
I know.
And in the moments of lucidity, that's a big word.
That is a big word. Have you been playing Scrabble when I've been at work?
No, Queen's Right.
Okay.
Queen's Right, and Silent Lucidity in the song. But anyway, so that was something that was kind of bouncing around in my head. And when my dad was in, we were talking, and he was doing good, but I couldn't tell him. I don't know if I did tell him. I might have. That they said, he's going to try to get me to go 6 more years. So.
Well, I think.
But knowing my grandparents, stubborn bats, so we are.
Right.
Yeah, We're gonna fight until the end. So.
Well, and I think that was one of those things that also kind of filled my, okay, where's the other shoe? Because it's like we're on borrowed time, and it makes it difficult in the sense that you don't know what you're doing tomorrow. And cancer is like that, period. You don't know what you're doing tomorrow. You don't know what your day's going to look like tomorrow. And then you have this prognosis that seems rather bleak. And then it makes you kind of like, it makes you really worry. And, I've told you this, that I don't know, like in October, while you were still on targeted therapy, we went to the beach. And I was crossing over the bridge to the beach, and I just kept saying, like, thank you for giving us one more beach trip.
So during that beach trip, it was during the kids' state swim meet.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we went on vacation.
No, we didn't go on vacation. Good gosh, we don't have anything to do that.
That was the first. So the only time I left the house during targeted therapy. I mean, we went to,
Oh, Sydney's graduation.
so she graduated
Academy.
academy, and it was kind of a big deal to go up there, not only for her but for me. And Dad went with us.
Yep.
Excuse me. And so we got to go up there and met all her chief and her classmates and or academy mates. They're not really classmates; they're academy mates. And they were all like super receptive and all
Because
that, and surprised
they
that I was up walking.
they had gone through this with her because she was there, like we said, at academy when all of this started, and she couldn't leave. Well, she could leave, but then it would lose her place, and her job
Hmm.
would be at risk. I mean,
And
just
she did
other
try.
things.
She did tell me, she was like, I'll be there in the morning, and I was like, if you show up, I'm kicking your ass. And I wasn't even out of bed yet.
And I will say she had really good support there. That when when you had your brain surgery, like they pulled her out of the classroom, and they gave her more sparring into the self defense stuff.
Yep.
They gave her something to beat up. They gave her something to work at with that, so that her mind wasn't sitting idly in a classroom. And I think that was a big thing. Like her chief was really involved with that. He still checks in on you.
Hmm.
Her department still checks in on you through her. So I
Her
mean,
her one friend uh, still asked for pictures. Like she would have to have a picture of the day, and
yeah,
I'd be out of it, and I'm sitting in a chair, and I hear something, and I look up, and there's the wife with her phone, smile, and I was like, for what? Well, this is for so and so, and I was like, okay.
it's the picture of the day. I mean, when the guy only wears pajamas and shirts, and nothing matches, and we have different hats on, and you just have to document some of it. Some of it was great. Some of it was like, oh dear, I don't even know how you got out of the house like this. But
Well, I'm telling you, my fashion give a shit was gone.
honey, you didn't really have much before, but
No,
now it's toast.
no, it was gone, and it was, hey, I got clothes on. Let's just be happy with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back. You get me so off track. This is why I'm here. So, okay, so we did the 8 weeks of targeted, and we went back, and what I was saying was we had a really good response. The tumor under the arm shrunk almost to about the size of a pebble, I think we could call it. I mean, by the time we were done with 8 weeks, they could barely feel it. It wasn't.
You could feel it, but it was more like, um, I'd say about the size of a quarter. So
Oh, okay.
it went from bigger than a ping pong ball.
To about.
No, actually, under the arm was about the size of a baseball.
Yes, when he lifted his arm up, it protruded about half a baseball.
And when after the targeted, we were down to about the size of a quarter.
Okay, so then they made the decision that we're going to stop targeted. In research I read, they only do targeted for so long. And there's a lot of research that is still fuzzy about whether it's safe for prolonged usage. Some people do. Um, but a lot of the things I read said they really don't. They don't prefer to use it that way. So our next step was a fancy word of immunotherapy, something I hadn't heard about. When you think of cancer, you always think of radiation and you think of chemotherapy, but you don't really hear immunotherapy. And so where immunotherapy is much like chemotherapy in the sense that it is liquid, it's delivered through an IV or a port. The difference is chemotherapy kills everything, immunotherapy speeds everything up. So before we started, the doctor sat us down and said, okay, here's the rules. You're going to do this. If you have anything that I'm going to tell you that lasts for more than 24 hours, you're going to call me. If you have a headache, if you have a cough, if you are vomiting, if you have diarrhea, if you have muscle soreness, if you're not sleeping, if you're not doing this, check his blood pressure. We need to check the blood pressure, check the pulse. Oh, okay. If your vision gets funny, if, oh my gosh, and the list went on and on and on. So basically, immunotherapy does really good at fighting melanoma cells and cancer cells, but it also jacks every system you have and puts it into turbo. So every organ, he could have an itis associated with with the organ. A lot of people have problems with colitis and digestion. Um, a lot of people get arthritis. A lot of people get pituitary issues, difficulty coughing, or always coughing, or just random kind of things like that. And we're like, oh, okay. So I think in that first dose, we had one dose and they did both medicines, Ipi and Nevo. I do not know the full names. They are ridiculous, but it is on TV. It's like Yervoy and Optiva. That combination together has done really, really well, and people typically respond really well. And your first one went really well. I mean, for a few days, and about a week into it, the muscle pain started, and you sat almost in a fetal position because your body hurt, and you were having trouble walking. You were having trouble just basically oiling your joints. Everything just hurt.
Yep, you picture the Tin Man trying to walk. That's
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it was, and
and you were exhausted.
I was wore out. Just walking down the stairs wore me out, and I was stiff and just like the Tin Man. That's about the best way I can explain it to somebody who doesn't know. Um, if that's what arthritis is like, whew, I'm in trouble.
Well, so I got really good at emailing the doctor. Our favorite nurse often was the one who responded, or the care coordinator, and they'd call, tell me about it. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? And I'm like, oh, it's always in the back of his legs. It's always in his knees. His calves hurt. No, he doesn't have a headache. No, he doesn't have this. And we went through pretty much a whole system of checks,
Hmm.
to see what was affected, what wasn't affected, how bad it is. Oh, and then you got a rash. Do you remember that rash? It was after the
No,
first or the second one. You got, because the immunotherapy was done initially every once a month, and
every
then
4 weeks.
yeah, every 4 weeks. We did two of them, and then they had to end up splitting it because his body was getting toxic from the medicine, and they didn't want to push him into toxicity because that can cause other problems.
Now,
So
when
is
I didn't know what to expect with the injection.
no, I read everything again.
So I don't know. I never explored or asked or really concerned myself with how things were administered. So when they took me in, they take me to you're basically on the floor and you have to get into the room, whatever. The nurse comes back, and then you still have the IV in from them doing blood work. Well, then they hook up a machine. They have to call down to the lab and tell them that you're there so the lab can make up your drugs. They come back with an IV bag and they hang it up and they prime all the stuff and then they hook it up to your IV, turn the pump on and ask you if you need anything. I don't know. So like I get a Diet Coke or something like that, or I saw a lady with a blanket. She was getting chemo and she would have ice on her hands, and I'm thinking, what in the world am I getting into? And I didn't know what was going on, and it was warm going in.
Well, and because of COVID, I can't be in the infusions.
Right. So she was out in
I
the
waited.
lobby down the floor.
So your first infusion was, they did 30 minutes of one medicine,
Yep.
and then they waited like 15 or 20 minutes to see if there was a reaction, and then they did 30 minutes of the second one.
Yep.
And the goal was, if there was no reaction, they could run them together the next time.
Like if you think about and this is what really tripped me out because I had no idea what to expect. But if you think about this whole floor was like full of cubicles. They had a recliner in it and a second chair. They had a TV, and everything was no more than waist high. And like the counters were no more than waist high, so you could see everything. So you had one nurse or a couple nurses administering like this half, and then some on this half. So they had so many cubicles that they did it. It was really amazing. I had no idea.
I want to say your first infusion, and so when we go to the doctor for infusions, it is we go to Charlotte. You have blood work done first,
Yep.
and then you meet the doctor, and then you have an infusion chair.
Yep.
Typically, it's all in one day. Typically, it's at the same hospital. Not always. Not always is it the same hospital. Not always is it the same day.
The blood work and the doctor's always the same.
Yeah.
The infusion depended. Sometimes we had to go to a different hospital because like around holidays,
They were busy.
they were trying, if they were shut down for a day, like Thanksgiving, they were shut down Thanksgiving Day, so they had to get everybody in before their normal
Yeah.
day. So they
But
had to.
your first infusion, I feel like your chair time was like a 1 o'clock or something, and I still was on a Tuesday because I was going to see a 4 o'clock client, and I remember calling that client saying, I'm not going to make it. I'm so sorry. Let me cancel. And it took so long because they were busy and they were short staffed, and there was so much in the process of getting you hooked up, getting the medicine, a 30-minute run, a 15-minute wait, a 30-minute run, a 15-minute wait.
And then the flush, and then.
I don't think we got home that night till almost 5 o'clock.
Well, we didn't even get home then because we had traffic coming out of Charlotte.
It was 5:36, and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh my gosh, is this going to be what it's like every time?"
Yep.
And I'm like, I have said this to you, and I've said this to all your the staff at the hospital. I'll do anything you tell me to do. Just tell me what we're looking at. If I'm going to be here all day, just tell me, because we didn't know.
Yep.
So
now, after that first one, I started taking my earbuds and I was downloading podcasts, and I was listening to my friend Johnny Mag's Pit Life Barbecue. I would save that one and listen to that one during my infusion, and then usually we would listen to Morbid.
Yeah, we do love a good Morbid podcast.
It's a true crime one. We would listen to that all the way up there and all the way back.
And I would do work the whole time you were in there because I couldn't be with you anyway. So I would do notes, or I'd do school work, or I would do insurance work, or I would talk to the financial aid people at the hospital, or whatever I had to do.
I tell you what, when your brain's out of it and mush, and then you're thinking I'm only going to be around 6 more years, and then you're trying to talk to the insurance about whether you're covered or not. Holy crap! I don't see how the elderly do it.
No.
Like I was talking with my aunts, and we're like, could you see Grandma trying to do this?
Well,
and my grandma's 91, and it's like, could you see her trying to call and just to get verification of being covered?
We'll have to do just an insurance segment because I'm grateful we have it.
Yes.
I'm grateful that we had the support we had in all of it. But this is where I think every cancer hospital needs to put this stuff in a book and be like, the stuff you didn't know about cancer. Because there was no template or pamphlet for me to have.
That's why we're doing this.
I know, this is our pamphlet. To figure out like what the order is, and how soon do you start? Do you start when you realize you need it? Do you start when the diagnosis comes? What do you do? Because honestly, my brain was mush and overwhelmed at the beginning that there was no way I could have done any of it. And there are things that I didn't get done.
When we had first found out that we were going through this, I mean, I had to call the insurance because they wouldn't talk to her because she's not the primary.
He basically had to give permission, and then I could talk. But
So I was like, I don't know, this is what's going on. We're looking at this. And they're like, well, call us when you have definite answers and definite dates.
okay,
Okay. But I made contact to find out how this all worked because some of them give you time. Some you have to have this in by 10 days before. And anyway.
it's ridiculous. I mean, I am really glad that we had insurance because as we talked about the cost of the targeted medicine. Um, I don't know why I got a random bill in March of 2022 and it broke down your treatment and your hospital, like your lab work, your appointment with the doctor, the oncologist, and your immunotherapy was $74,000.
Damn.
Our insurance covered it, and we had that, where I signed up for the assistance program, and so they pay for all your medicines. But $74,000 for that one appointment, that one day in March. I don't know how people can do this without insurance.
Yeah.
And I mean, that number is just overwhelming to me. So, knowing that we also did 12 of those.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can't leave now. You have like $1 million body, baby.
Mm-hmm.
So,
these ladies, these nurses, they were the nicest people. I mean, because they know you're coming in, you're feeling like dog shit, and you're scared. I mean, you're scared. You don't know what's going on, and they were nicer than elementary school teachers. Let me tell you. I mean, they were. My hat's off to them. They were. They made you feel good, and they would always. I started noticing that they always called you my friend. They were like, "How you doing today, my friend?"
well, and
And it was kind of more welcoming than just, "Hey, come over here, let's get you hooked up." As she's puffing on a cigarette. This.
I don't know what nurse you're talking about. But okay.
but these nurses, they I got to give it to them. They were all super nice.
We've been blessed. We've been very blessed with doctors and nurses. Our favorite little nurse comes in and sits down with us after every appointment. Says, "Okay, guys, how are you doing? What's going on? Did the kids come home for the holidays? What are you doing this weekend?
Yep.
Do you have big plans?"
Yep.
And she shares some of her struggles with us. And I think
all of them did. All of them. They treated you like
family.
Like family. Yeah.
I mean, I guess they do see us all the time.
Because there was a couple of them that I had seen, but I hadn't had them work on me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But they would say, "Hey, I saw you a couple weeks or a month ago. How's things going?" Or, I've been wondering when I would get around to being your nurse, kind of thing.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I
think it was the beard that kind of turned them on, but
stop with that beard. So, okay, immunotherapy is its own beast, as we've said. Through immunotherapy, we learned a lot about the systems that can hurt, and I think we've hit all of them. I mean, I remember frantically. We were outside. You were finally feeling good. We went down to help friends do something in their yard, and we're talking to them, and I freaked out as we're standing outside. He comes back. We get back home. We were outside for a couple hours. We get back, and it was spring, so it wasn't even summer or super hot or anything like that. It was kind of chilly, but we were standing in the sun, and I don't think about it.
We were in short sleeves.
Yeah.
T-shirts.
I wasn't. I was in long sleeves, I think. But we get home, and I look at him, and he's sunburnt. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I have won the wife of the year. I just tried to kill you.
Again.
And so I text, or I send a message to his nurse, and I'm like, okay, so I just tried to kill Lee by letting him be outside for a couple hours without any sunscreen. What kind of sunscreen do I use? And they broke it down, and these are the crazy things that Lee's like, honey, don't ask them. And I'm like, they're the only ones I know to ask.
Yeah. So my hands got I guess I did have a long sleeve shirt on because my
You
arms
did.
didn't. My hands got
Your
a little
hands got
sunburnt
sunburnt.
in my back of my neck, and
Yeah.
I had a hat on.
Yeah, they had to tell me like which sunscreen to get.
Yeah,
And
there's
so
a
in case anybody cares,
what was it?
we now get Blue Lizard
Blue lizard.
sunscreen.
Yep.
It is a mineral-based sunscreen. Um, Now the big guy doesn't like to use it, but occasionally he will let me put it on him. Occasionally, I think it was after probably the second or third dermatology visit that he was like, "Fine, give it to me." But so, through this, the systems check, any headache he would get, if it lasted for 2 or 3 days, I was calling the doctor. Any muscle pains we couldn't get rid of or couldn't explain away, we called the doctor.
And
And
most of my aches and pains were in the back of my knees or in my knees. Like
yeah,
I wasn't getting any arthritis in the hands or in the elbows. One time during treatment that I
I
had
think
it
your
in,
elbows hurt.
I got it up into my elbows, but most of the time it was in my legs. And
So, because we couldn't keep that away, we this was a common thing. And because we were getting to that point, like therapy was going well, immunotherapy was going really good. Our monthly checks were looking good. And our doctor said, "So, who's your dermatologist?" And Lee looked at him, deadpanned him in the face, and goes, "Well, I was hoping you know somebody." And he's like, "Oh dear."
he goes, "What?" And I said, "I bet you know a guy."
He walked out and he walked back in with a dermatologist.
He says, "Hold on a minute." So he has one on his floor in his network, and basically, you come check this guy out, and I'll buy you lunch, kind of thing.
Well, we don't know that, but
That was a joke that I made with him after the visit. But
so
this little fellow walks
he
in.
comes in, he checks all these moles, and he said, "Okay, everything looks good, but I'm going to see you in your next visit, and I'm going to do a thorough exam." So that's the first other ologist we gained.
And yes, when he says thorough, yeah,
I've been married to the man for 20, 21 years this year, and I was even embarrassed to be in the room. Let's just go there.
I don't
So,
think I've ever had. Well, I know I've never had a man that close to anything. The places that guy went, he was like out of Star Trek. He boldly went where no man's gone before.
that's it. That's it. That's Dr. B.
Yeah,
Um,
he cheese and pizza.
so so we talked a lot about the joint pain.
He didn't even give me a sucker when I was done.
You really shouldn't say that altogether.
Yeah, I know. I still got a sticker.
A sticker,
A sticker,
a sticker. Um,
like a gold sticker.
so because of all the joint pain, we also went to rheumatology. So now we have a rheumatologist, and with the blood sugar numbers, we have endocrinology. The as we got through more
And
and more of this treatment.
and they kept checking me for lupus.
Well, that was a rheumatologist.
Rheumatology. Okay.
Um, as we got further along in the treatment, we had some heart stuff going on. So now we have a cardiologist. We just hit all of these doctors, and we've been great. They've been great. They've all been so good, and they work specifically with our oncologist.
Yeah.
So they all kind of know, like when we go to the rheumatologist, for example, number one, her grandparents live in Piqua. We're from Sydney,
Yeah.
in
Imagine.
Ohio.
Imagine
So,
that.
so yeah, so they live right a hop, skip, and a jump away from where you lived growing up most of your life. Um, but she comes in and she's like, "Okay, well, let me check everything out." And she looks at your joints and she does this and she has done all the blood work, because through this, you did test positive, and you always test positive for an autoimmune disease. But they're really thinking now that that is caused by the revving up of your system because you
Hmm.
have tested negative for lupus. You've tested negative for rheumatoid arthritis, which is what they were really concerned about.
Yep.
But we go to see her every 3 months. Um, endocrinology because of the blood sugar numbers. We went there, like Lee said earlier, to see if he morphed into a type 1, and he is still a type 2. And as of right now, we don't have to see her unless we need to see her,
Yep. Right
unless
now
there's some problems.
the family doc's able to keep up with that.
You know, we
So I just saw her, the earlier this week, and that blood work, she was concerned because the thyroid number was up, which we talked about, and but otherwise she was like, I'm not going to mess with your sugar stuff, um, because it seems to be the roller coaster. And I said, when the thyroid's high, my sugar's high.
yeah.
That's just how it
Well,
goes.
and sometimes it feels like there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, we have all of these doctors monitoring all of this and all of this blood work happening all the time. You know, we missed his last, before this, we had to get this appointment, but we missed the one prior because we were going to all the other ologists.
Well, and I missed the one in August because we went to the
We went to all the other,
endocrinologist
yeah.
to see about type going like it
We went to endocrinology
to
and
see
we
if
went
it
to,
was morphing, and
went
she did
there.
an A1C,
We
and
went
it
to
was
cardiology.
then it was a 6-8 then.
We went to rheumatology. We went to dermatology. So everything she would have checked, we were having checked that same week or 2 weeks in August.
So to give you an idea how funny our oncologist is, so we were talking about, he asked if we had a cardiologist, and I was like, I bet you know a guy, and he laughed. He said, "Yep, we'll set up an appointment." So we go to his guy. Well, this last visit, he was like, "So who do you need to see now?" And I said, "Buddy, the only ologist that we haven't seen is the butt guy." He said, "I know a guy." I was like, "Don't you dare." He says, "I know a guy. I can get you in."
I know a guy.
And I said, "No, no, no. My MRI said I'm clear. I don't need to go see him. Everything's coming out fine. We're good."
Yeah, I mean, I guess we were not prepared for the influx of what immunotherapy would do to your body.
No, because basically it was like if you give. This is the way my simple distorted mind worked was basically if you give your immune system a Red Bull and you shake your head, that's what it is. It's just everything's in hyperdrive and on speed.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that what all that the rest of the body can't keep up. So not only are you like boosting the immune system, but then the rest of the body that functions off of what the immune system's doing as a checks and balances type deal, it's not ready for that. So
right. So there were just a lot of days, like about 3 days after every infusion, he's really tired,
yeah.
and he takes a few more naps than normal.
Then usually week 2, I can lay down.
Sore.
I have to lay down, but I may not sleep. I just rest. Mm-hmm. And I have to do that for week 2 and week 3. And then week 4, I'm kind of, I can lay down.
And then we go right back into it.
And then we're right back at it. So, and then I always try to, usually after day 3 or 4, or day 2, I try to do something, whether it's work in the garage or, like I was outside doing stuff. I overdo it, and I know I do it, but I need to do it because it justifies me feeling bad, if that makes sense. So
where on my side of it, I just get annoyed with you.
Yeah.
Because I know what's coming.
But I know that I'm going to feel bad, so I have to. And she's like, "You could do the dishes." Well, the dishes are always going to be there. You can
trust that I know that.
You can do the dishes, and then the sink's going to fill up again. You got to do them again. You get out and you do something in the yard and make a difference. And yeah, you feel like crap for 5 days, and you're exhausted. But then you're like, I did that. There's a noticeable change that it took a couple years to get there because we've been dealing with this, but it's a noticeable change.
Well, and I've told you this. I know
and it's out of the house.
I know that's important for you, but sometimes when you do things like that, it brings more stress on me because now I'm picking up slack because you feel like crap and you did that to yourself.
Yeah, but I felt good.
I'm aware of that. Now, through all of his treatment, his oncologist is like, use this whenever you need. If you don't want to do something, oh, I can't do this. I have cancer. Now, mind you, he says it with a laughing face. And I'm like, will you stop saying that?
Well, so
I said, because he's not doing the dishes. He's not doing nothing in the house. And he said, oh, he's a sick man. I'm like, do not help him. I'm
so
like,
like
I'm going to leave him with you.
we
I
had
threaten it at least every visit. I threaten to leave you with your doctor.
yeah.
One
Which
day I should just walk out and be like, there you go, sir.
so like
You made him.
the one day we had complications like real bad stiffness. I think I had a
Yeah.
headache or something, and he's like, "Get in here." So we went in there and we did the blood work, and he looks at me. He walks in the door and he says, "Why are you here?" And I was kind of frustrated because I hadn't been feeling good and a lot of mental confusion and just not in a good place. And I was kind of short and shitty with him when I said it, but I didn't mean it, and he took it, you know, jokingly. But I was like, I don't know. I guess you're having a shitty ass day and you just need somebody to come in here and make you feel better. And he goes, huh, fair enough. So then once he laughed, then I was like, okay, now my day's better. So he actually made me feel better about where I was at.
Yeah. I
Um,
think having a good, we have a pretty open kind of dialogue with him. Um, he knows that you often, and I don't know if you know that he does this, and maybe I shouldn't say because this could be his tell. Um, if he says, how are you doing? He'll listen to you, but he'll look at me
mm-hmm.
to see if I nod or if I shake my head or if I roll my eyes. And he's like, okay, tell me, how is he really?
Yeah, because he knows I'm a guy, and yeah, things are great.
Because Lee has said from day one, the doctor will ask him, how's your endurance? Lee's like, it's good. It's good. Are you doing things? Yep.
I'm getting up and down the stairs. I'm in and out of bed.
Are you feeling a little back to normal? Yep, yep, getting there. And I'm like, well, hold on. No, no. He is walking up and down the stairs. Is he getting up and putting around the house for a few hours every day? No. Could he mow a lawn right now and our lawn is not big, which is something he did prior? No. Can he be on his feet for more than an hour at a time before he needs to sit down? No. Is he doing this? No. So the husband I had prior to cancer, physically, with like your momentum, the things you like to do, your motivation, your endurance with tasks, he is not back yet.
No, we
And
did. We did. We had a car that was having some troubles shortly after I got sick,
yeah,
and so it wasn't running. And we determined that it was the alternator.
yes.
And that Christmas, my middle daughter wanted an alternator for Christmas because she wanted to drive the car. So Santa Claus brought her the alternator, and it took me a few months to feel good to start working on it, and it it took me a while.
It about laid you out.
It took me two tries to get the alternator out, because I'd never done one before. So I'd finally got it out, got the new one in, and I mean it took it out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had a couple guys that were wanting to come and help me, and of course I'm stubborn and I'm gonna do it myself, and that
I'm
was
really glad that those guys just stopped by.
they
Because they helped. People came, didn't they?
I'm kind of I don't my brain skipped. Hold on.
So anyway, while he's coming back, they
Yeah.
ended up driving by and seeing him working on it, and they stopped.
So we got it. We got it in and everything. Got it hooked up,
Yeah.
and then it ran.
Yeah.
It took me forever to get the belt back on. Once I got the alternator on, I did that one day, and then I had to go in and rest because I was whipped.
Yeah.
And then I had to get the belt on, and it took me a while. I mean, and so this whole process, I mean, I probably came back to it 4 times,
Yeah. I mean,
four or
I
five
think
times.
that's the biggest difference we've seen is while you're feeling better, the multitasking mentally, you're not there.
Yeah.
The endurance of being up and moving, you're not there. Um, like he just started driving around town. I think your longest drive has been a couple hours when we've been traveling, 2 or 3, about 2 hours.
Is Yeah. So
Where he used to drive all the way to Ohio to see our family, and he can't drive.
yeah, I could do it. I used to be able to do 8 to 10 hours, no problem. Stop for gas, stretch, grab
Yeah.
some more drinks, and go. Now it's
Your longest drive's been 2 hours. You've done it like
yeah,
2 or 3 times now.
and that was it has to be minimal traffic and during daylight.
Yeah.
Nighttime
So
messes with me to like headlights. If I'm on back roads, like we'll go up to the auction house and we take the back way, and then it's not so bad. I can get there and back, no problem. Driving around town, it depends if how heavy traffic is. There's a lot of lights, like 5 o'clock at dusk now.
yeah.
Um,
Rain. If it rains,
yeah,
he just puts his hat over his eyes and he's like, "Thank you for driving."
and there's in any time we go on the highway to Charlotte, we got to run 77 all the way north. I can't look out the front windshield while she drives. Like I
So
have to look
I
out the
think
side or close my eyes.
I think
Or
that's one of those things that we didn't expect. Like I knew you couldn't drive for a while, and I was cool with driving, and I'm always going to be cool with driving. You said years ago, "I'm so glad your dad taught you to drive," and like you were good driving long
mhm,
distances. That's one thing you got from your dad, and I guess I didn't realize I'd be using it so much.
like
Um, and I honestly think that's why I went from being, I always like to run. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. Let's go here. Let's go here. And now I'm like, no, I do not want to get back in the car.
yep. So like if we go to dinner or we have to like take the kids somewhere, one of the kids somewhere, I'll try to drive, and I'll get there. But if I'm having trouble, I'm like here, like I would. When I first started driving was probably oh
You went to the
probably
grocery
6 months,
6 months and 6 to 8 months into immunotherapy.
into immunotherapy, which was probably a year after
Yeah.
surgery, and they were like, take it easy, treat it just like a new driver, and I would drive to the grocery store a mile and a half down the road,
Yeah.
but I might not drive back because it was just too much stimulation.
Right.
And the more I've been trying to do that, the better. Than teaching my youngest one how to drive. So then she's got a permit and we're driving more. So I might drive to the store, she drives home, or
right. I mean,
I take
the
her
big
to
thing
school.
is you were really still just driving in town.
Right. So
short distances.
like this week, she's driving to school, and then I'll go. Like today, I went to the park and sat at the park and read until she got out because she's only in school for an hour and a half. So then I drive back to the school. So I'm only driving miles at a time, like a few
Yeah.
miles at a time. So
I guess I know this episode is weird because it's not in a great timeline, but immunotherapy, it just happens like we said every 4 weeks, but mixed in with that, we still had probably until summer. So from last December of 2021 until July, we still went to see the neurosurgeon every 3 months. We saw rheumatology every 3 months, and then we added in everybody else. So there were some weeks, like, we do try to get all of his appointments on the same day. It makes a long day for us, but it makes sense. But there were some weeks that we had an appointment on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then the next week on Monday and Thursday. And I mean, I'm grateful that my job allowed me to move things around how I could, because I didn't go back to work in the clinic, treating the way I typically treated until February of 2022.
And
They gave me all that time basically off, or I would see kids that I could see here in town. I'd be gone for 2 hours. That was the maximum. I felt comfortable leaving you alone. 2 hours, and then I'd be back. An hour, then I'd come back. So my day was very like, take the kids to school, come home, see a kid, come home, do this, go see a kid, come home, go see a kid, come home. So it was constantly a going and back and going and back and going and back. And I'll do it over as much as I have to do this over. I'm not mad about it by any means, but it just, that combined with the stress of this and the stress of all the paperwork and the back work, because I really tried to shield you from it. One, because you get really upset with it.
Oh, that
and
paperwork.
Two, you couldn't comprehend it. So it would frustrate me because you'd want to know when I try to tell you, and then you get mad at me because it was upsetting, or it was a lot of, why are you so upset? And I couldn't tell you, well, I've been fighting with insurance for 4 hours today.
Yes.
And then if I told you I was fighting with 4 hours today, then you got upset because I had to fight with insurance for 4 hours. And you couldn't help me because you couldn't understand what they were talking about and what we had to do and how it all works.
And there was times where she would say, hey, you need to give this guy permission. So I'd give him permission, and then they would go off and talk, and then she'd come back and she goes, he needs your permission again. And I was like, are you fucking serious?
Language, baby.
Sorry. Well, and that's what I would say, and the guy would be like, hello, I'm on the phone. I was like, yeah, what do you want? Yes, talk to my wife. And then I'd hand the phone back, and because I had, obviously my filter was gone.
Yeah.
I had zero patience, and the wife was all over me. Like, I couldn't do anything because she was afraid that I was going to stand on a chair and change a light bulb, pass out, and knock my head on the counter. And so she was like, you don't do anything, but then be mad because I didn't do anything.
Well, and we've always said that your experience through cancer is very different than mine.
Yes.
You felt it. You felt the stuff, or you didn't feel the stuff, depending on whether it was mental work. Maybe you weren't checked into that part or whatever, but I felt all of it.
I lived through it. You lived with it.
Yes, and I lived with it in a much different way from you. Like when you were having brain surgery, they had you good on some pain meds. They didn't give me crap. So my the emotional toll I went through is way different, and you'll never know that feeling.
No.
You'll never know the feelings I had through that whole surgery, or preparing you for it, or taking you to radiation, or taking you to therapy, and knowing what I know. So
yep, because
it's always different. And then
to me, I was just brushing it off like this is nothing, it's okay.
And
trying to make it seem like it was not as big a deal as it was when I mean,
well, and I had
shit that cut my brain open.
I talked to your cousin, and I remember asking her, this isn't good, right? And she said no. this isn't good. And I said, okay, okay.
Yep.
So my job was to make all of it as easy as I could and to watch you because you might not know you're acting weird because I still don't believe that you know. Like, if I could have videotaped you when the brain tumor was we first knew that something was really wrong. If I could have videotaped you, I think you would be shocked at what I saw. And you didn't see because it was you.
Yeah. Yep.
So, watching you go through immunotherapy, I could tell, and you know this, how you walked down the stairs, I knew what kind of day we were going to have. And I always knew something was wrong. Like, are you feeling okay? And you're like, no, I'm not. Okay. And you're like,
I'm
how'd
going.
you know? And I'm like, well, because you're walking defeated.
Yep. There was days where I just looked at her, so I'm going back to bed, and
And
I'd go up and lay down.
so, I've said that
It's a
while
hell of a
you've
process.
been living this, I've been on fight or flight.
Yep. It's been a hell of a process all the way around.
Because I don't want to drop the ball on something and screw something else up because there is no pamphlet.
No. And mentally, it's taxing, and then you get the dumbasses on insurance. What? Get into that next.
We'll have to do insurance next. But it's taxing, but also while we're doing this, we're still raising kids.
Yep.
And we're trying to keep their life normal. And we're trying to shield them from some of this. And yet have open conversation with them about this.
It's like when the kids, our middle one and youngest one, they were in swim, and I'd only went to like 2 meets, and which was very abnormal. I was very active in their swimming program, and we went to the state final, or went down to state. Our middle one got to go as an alternate, and it was our senior year, and we were down in Charleston, and we were. Mama let me go to a Goodwill down there because I like to thrift and find cast iron pieces, and we were down there, and I found two fajita skillets.
Yeah.
That anyway, that's a side note. But she wasn't happy, but she was okay with it because it was like our first. That was probably our first or second big outing.
Yeah, it was the second because Sydney's graduation was the first.
Yep. So then we went and did this, and it took a lot out of me just riding in the car, getting out there, walking.
That's when you're like, well, and you were on me all the time. Well, it's because of things like that, because I could see you wearing down. And when you wear down, you get grumpy and you get angry voiced, and then your tone changes.
Very short.
And your whole mood changes. And so I'm trying to protect us from that, and you, because if you're going to come at us like that, I try really hard not to snap back, but it is my demeanor to snap back.
And it's not done on purpose.
No.
And that was the bad thing, or the good thing is she knew it wasn't on purpose. The kids knew it wasn't on purpose.
But it still hurts.
And it was actually documented as treatment can do that.
Well, yes, and we knew all that.
But
it's still
to live with it, and I had to be conscious of
hurts.
I had to be conscious of when I was being short, and if I crossed that line, then I had to be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna shut up and let's go on.
So it was finding a fine line in a lot of things that.
And I remember when we were walking on the beach, I had my big bucket hat on, and we were down at Folly Beach because we were already in Charleston. The kids had swam, and
we had a little bit of time to do something.
We were done with the swim event, so she run down to Folly, which was 20 minutes, and we just walked the beach.
Yeah.
And she goes, "This might be the last time that we do this." I was like, "It's possible." Who'd have thought we'd be doing that? That we'd be here thinking that could be the last time.
Yeah.
Or that we wouldn't have been able to do this again. And so we walked the beach a little bit, and then I had my cane.
Well, and the
So
girls were
just to
running
help.
on the beach and running in the water, and it
They
was
were.
beautiful in that sense that we were able to be there. They were still partaking in something they enjoyed.
It was
Um, it was an awakening of some sorts. I think that
reviving.
we have to do some of these things, and we still need to make these memories, and we still have to do the stuff
Yep.
because one, we deserve it, our
So,
family deserves it.
and that was kind of a turning point that said, hey, life's precious. You could be gone in a matter of a few months. It could
Well,
happen at any time.
and
So you gotta suck it up. Go do the things even though you're exhausted, and try to make it. And even the kids will know, Dad, you was whipped,
mhm.
but and then they'll let me have the back seat, and I'll go to sleep.
Yeah.
They're like,
I,
hey,
I remember when I first started back to work, and you're like, babe, you can spend more time away from the house.
yeah,
And
because I've not
said,
been,
Lee, I can't,
yeah,
because I need to know you wake up.
because for me, I mean, for our whole marriage, I've worked anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day,
Hmm.
and then I don't know how countless hours, right? So I've always been the one away from the house, and we would only have a few hours in the evening, and or a day or two on the weekend or something like that, or off shifts or whatever, and we made it work. But now we were thrown into.
I didn't leave. I couldn't leave.
She was by my side the whole time.
I know I
I
drove them
mean,
crazy, but
like if I had to go to the bathroom, it was like, "Are you okay? What are you doing?" I was like, "Hold on, baby, I gotta pee. I just can't get out of the chair." Because at the time we had a chair that sits really low and it's a pain in the ass, but it was my
I
mom's, so we
just,
keep it. But anyway, so
I guess I thought
for
that,
me it was over. It was like a helicopter mom,
but
but
knowing
it was a
everything
helicopter
I
wife.
saw,
Yeah, and
everything I knew,
it's
I
justifiable.
didn't feel safe leaving you to do these things. And I was still counting, like, okay, when's that shoe gonna drop?
It's all justifiable, but at the time, that was more time. We'd spent more time after surgery together than what we had probably the first 5 years of our marriage.
I think so. I think
So,
so. The
so,
good part is I still love you after all of it.
so it was suffocating to me.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I'm like, leave me alone.
And then I got hurt. I mean, it just,
And she's got to touch you. I mean, it's like,
it's,
honey, I just blinked. It's okay. Like it was something, and we're still trying to work through that.
and I still have to touch you.
I know.
So
So
hey, went a little long. We're sorry. We know that this wasn't as put together as the rest, but this is immunotherapy. It's not put together. It's not pretty. It's not seamless. It's not easy.
it's an organized train wreck.
Yeah, yeah.
Really.
We never knew what was going to happen next. It's kind of like those books where you're like, okay, flip to page 36, and you can flip to 36 and there's an alternate ending, and then I don't know what
Oh
those books are called, where
yeah, and
if you
then
want to see what happens to Max, flip to page 72.
and then if you flip to page 72, and then it told
It's a
you
whole nother story.
something else and sent you back to page 12,
Yes,
and then yeah.
that's what immunotherapy feels like.
It's
It feels like this uncontrolled, controlled treatment that can wreck everything inside your body. It can save you. It can heal you for right now.
one thing that you will hear when you start this, or somebody that's going through it, is cancer touches everything.
Hmm.
And by everything, I mean shit you didn't know was possible. It touches your, I mean, not only your health, your body, your emotions, your friendships, your finances, your future finances. It touches everything. I mean, it's just it flips everything upside down, and
We're still flipped. I mean, we're still flipped.
I've got to
We're
say
like a
the
quarter that just you spin it on the table and it just
yep,
and then it falls. We're still spinning.
yep, it's in the people that we've met and the friendships that have grown stronger and have come because of this is amazing.
And I think patience. I think we both have a different level of patience.
And one thing that I stress a lot is take time for the little things
Mhm.
because the kids aren't going to remember the the new car that you have out there or the Mercedes, but they will remember you taking the time to show them how to change a tire. They will remember you feeling like crap after immunotherapy and you're dragging because you're dead tired,
And you still show up.
but you show up to their event and you're carrying a cane and you look like a hot mess. They don't care because you're there.
You're there.
It's the little things. The take the time to stop and get them a milkshake.
Well, and thank gosh we have an unlimited plan and we don't have to do that whole. When we first got cell phones, it was Verizon after 8 o'clock was free.
Oh yeah.
We would have racked up a whole nother bill with as much as the girls called.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Sydney especially because she lives so far away. The calls and the FaceTimes and the texts and the calls and the calls.
And it's opened up because I'm not one to sugarcoat things or hide things. So it's opened up conversations with the kids
Yeah.
and hard conversations, flat out hard ones.
I think it's opened up hard conversations all around.
And
like you and I've had to talk about things that I hope
yeah.
that we would never have to talk about, but we have.
Yep, having a living will. What are we doing with all this stuff in our house? Like future plans.
Yeah.
What do you do? And I mean, we can get into more of that later, but
we will.
But
I think
it's opened up. You got to be open and honest, and to be able to tell the kids, hey, if I'm not here in 5 years, you've got to know how to do this. To Dad, the toilet's plugged. Okay, well let's unplug it. The one day they the the faucet quit working.
yes.
So we had a problem with the faucet. Well, we went and found a nice lady that worked with us and at the big box store down here, and she worked with us, found us a really nice one on clearance, and we got it for about 2/3 less than what it was originally priced.
Right.
Because she'd done some finagling, and so I've never put in a faucet. Well, Cub and I got up underneath there and we figured it out, and we put in a faucet together. Now that's something simple. It took probably 3 times as long because I was doing it and she was helping me.
And you both talk a different language half the time when you talk to each other.
But it was fun. It was enjoyable. It took us all afternoon. But she was like, "Oh, I got help with that."